Hey guys, welcome back to another Q&A episode. It is August 2nd, 2019. It's about 7 p.m. here. It's Friday. And this is a 2-year episode. I mentioned in the actual thread that's been about 2 years since I started doing these every week, or pretty much every week, and everybody seems to like them, so we'll keep them going. First question this week is, and by the way, I believe everything was sleep related this week. So I did a topic one. I haven't done a topic specific in a while, but everything is sleep related. First question, for your clients or yourself, do you ever auto-regulate training volume or intensity to compensate for a prior night's poor sleep prior night? Yes and no. I mean, it can get a little tricky with the clients because you might not get that information right away, you know what I mean, or every time it happens. Now, typically my suggestion is, and I should preface this by saying, if somebody normally has, they have pretty good sleep pretty much all the time, because I harp on that with pretty much all my clients anyhow. So, and we talk about different practices and sleep hygiene. So assuming that's the case most of the time, if they're pushing through one day and the rest of the days are all perfect, it's probably not going to hurt anything in the grand scheme. But for my clients that are a little more seasoned and definitely better at understanding that feedback within themselves and or reporting to me, then my typical suggestion would be intensity to be back down the intensity. That way we're not changing the entire training program itself. They can auto-regulate that way themselves, by reducing intensity, whether you want to use RPE scale or lighten the weight or however, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit easier way to do it. Now with myself personally, I'll pretty much do the same thing. I have a routine, but there are some swaps that I would make. Like I may stick to my primary movements and then do all my volume fill-ins with like giant sets and things, all sub-maximal work. Or I may do all sub-maximal work entirely for the whole day if I felt really run down. Or I may not even train. I may not train and just literally push it to the next day. So one of the things that I like to do too with the way I schedule splits with people is, if we have let's say 5 days of training, I don't place the rest days in any particular spot. So I'm not going to say train 3 on, 1 off, 2 on, 1 off. Okay, it will be, I want my clients to put the rest days in where they want them in, according to their work schedule, sleep schedule, recovery, so on and so forth. Because people pretty much know, if they have a relatively consistent schedule, hey, this is the night where I have a really hard time with getting enough sleep because of my work or whatever. Or they're somebody that works like 4 10-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, and then they have a bunch of days off or whatever, so they can really place the recovery days in where they want. So if all else fails, just skip a day. And I mean, and a lot of my clients too, I have rotating, if we rotate nutrition too, then they can just use their non-training day nutrition plan to compensate for the lack of caloric expenditure as well. So I mean, there's pretty much a plan in place there to if they need to move something around. Rundown on the mechanisms as to how tren negatively affects sleep, how to best counter it. I know you mentioned high dose of 5-HTP before, but anything else? I don't know if I mentioned the high dose. I mean, it's a normal dose, I think, but so I don't know how far you want to break down down into the mechanistic level, and I probably couldn't tell you all the way down to super detailed level, but it does impact neurotransmitter production and metabolism. So the 5-HTP suggestion is because of serotonin depletion. So that's why, and that's most likely why it gives people like irritability and or anxiety and things like that. Serotonin is very much a calming, mellowing type of neurotransmitter. So, you deplete that, and then you have that side effect, as well as the making it harder to sleep. So, yeah, that's the main thing. That's really, yeah. But you can also look at too. Also, it will impact your ratio of deep sleep to REM sleep. So we actually talked about that on, I'm trying to think, it was probably a week or two ago on the OPD podcast, on some actual readings from the Oura Ring sleep tracker in terms of how it impacted deep sleep and REM sleep pretty drastically and extremely quickly too. So yeah, that would be another consideration. Yeah, that's it. I think that's the main thing. I couldn't truthfully tell you, I couldn't break it down any further mechanistically than that. I'm sure there's probably some better explanation, but yep, there you go. Don't put anything else. Yeah, don't use it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, if it causes that much systemic stress, don't use it. Just, yeah, it's not any, pretty much, you can apply that to a lot of things, PED wise too, especially like a stimulant, or or a fat burner, or something that causes a lot of sympathetic drive. Well, if it's causing more sympathetic drive and issues with that, and impacting REM sleep and deep sleep and restfulness and sleep in general, and all these things, it's not providing you any type of benefit that's going to override the negative, and you can apply that to everything. So just don't use it. There's other options. All right. Difficulty digesting food after exercise. Tried all kinds of foods that work well. I guess this isn't a sleep question, but that's okay. Tried all kinds of foods that work well with me in normal cases, but still have difficult being able to digest anything after exercise. Okay, well, the main issues is just it's a nervous system issue. So your training is sympathetically driven, and your digestion is parasympathetically driven. So they're just opposites. Digestion is a resting process. So if your sympathetic nervous system's pretty fired up after you train, especially after a hard session, it's not uncommon to not have an appetite after you train. This is a relatively common thing. So there's a couple ways you can go about it. Just don't eat after you train, just wait. That's probably the easiest thing. Now, if you're having a hard time maybe with your day as a whole getting all the nutrients in, then you could maybe do a larger intra-workout shake where you're using amino acids or hydrolyzed proteins, or just whey isolates, or something that digests extremely easily. Even in the sympathetic state, it's still going to digest pretty easily. And then add the carbohydrates in there that require very little digestion, relatively quicker rates of gastric emptying. So you can pump up your intra shake and get a lot of your calories and macros in that way, and then just wait after you train to eat. That would be my suggestion, because the thing is, even if you find a food that maybe does okay with you, if you're having problems eating, that's telling you that your digestion's not going to be functioning optimally anyhow, because you are in that sympathetic state. So it doesn't really matter what the food is. You need to come down out of that sympathetic state before you eat anyhow, regardless of food selection. All right, so for those who suffer from PTSD, what are some supplements and or practices that help with sleep better? Personally, I have my medical card for marijuana, but are there other ways to get sleep and stay asleep? If you could possibly in the future talk about the science of marijuana, that would be awesome as well. Okay, well, the science of marijuana is a pretty big topic, but we have talked about or at least I have on Facebook and social media posts about different effects that it has in terms of your nervous system and sleep, and some positives and some even some negatives. And yeah, that's a big topic though. I don't know if I could answer that right here. If you're interested, let me know. I could probably find that post, and there was some good like actual research on it, not just people taking it and letting you know what they think. But outside of that, I mean, the practices for somebody with PTSD or anxiety disorders or anything like that is going to be relatively similar to anyone else. It's just that you're going to need to be more diligent about it. Balancing your nervous system, so balancing your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, your autonomic nervous system, balancing your neurotransmitters. Sleep hygiene is going to be important, so wearing your blue light blockers, making sure that you're not doing anything too stimulating before bed that might cause anxiety, minimal light exposure before bed, sleep in a very cool, extremely dark room, comfortable bedding, play with your eating around bedtime. Some people do okay with eating right at bedtime. Other people actually sleep better if they don't eat right at bedtime, so mess around with that as well. Man, I mean, there's a lot of things when it comes to sleep hygiene, but those are, there's some easy ones to start. I have an article on it. I mean, there's all kinds of over-the-counter supplements and stuff. You start messing with neurotransmitters, but in order to know what you really need, you'd have to actually probably know the symptoms or test neurotransmitters. Now, before you just say, oh, I want to take melatonin or I want to take GABA or whatever. Yeah, there's a little more to it. But yeah, sleep hygiene. If you can really, really nail your sleep hygiene and get in routine, and also with that routine is sleep-wake times, waking up, going to bed at the same times, routine. That is crucial. I can't even explain how crucial that is, because your circadian patterns will regulate themselves pretty heavily, simply because that's what your body does. Everything works off this circadian pattern. So you're going to be tired at the same time. When it's time to go to bed, you're going to be tired. And it's a heck of a lot easier to go to bed when you're really, really tired. It's going to be a lot easier to fall asleep when you're really, really tired. So you have to regulate those patterns, making sure you're not taking in stimulants too late in the day. Remember that caffeine, especially a common stimulant, obviously stays in your system for a long time, and that will impact your sleep quality. Stays in your system for hours and hours, 10, 12 plus hours sometimes. And again, let me know. I have a whole article on sleep and setting up the sleep hygiene, and then some other supplement recommendations there. But if you can nail down that sleep environment, man, you're gonna be doing pretty good, even with anxiety issues. And if you do have a lot of anxiety right at bedtime, another kind of hippie one, might not have a lot of research behind it, maybe has a little bit, is weighted blankets. I've had success with those with people that do have anxiety at bedtime, racing, kind of a mind racing type of person. They've had a pretty successful with it. For a male, someone 200 pounds or more, I probably suggest 20 to 25 pound blanket. You can get them on Amazon. They work really well. So that would be something to try as well. Okay. Oh, that's a repeat, isn't it? About training autoregulation. That is a repeat. I think that's it on that one. Let's go over to my other thread. Oh, well, I sort of covered this already. We can touch on it a little bit more. I've recently been hearing about negative implications of eating too close to bedtime. Do you have any personal insight or opinion on last meal timing as it relates to sleep? try it. That's my opinion, is try it. I mean, I know what the implications are. I know that the digestion process is pretty extensive and how it can disrupt sleep, but try it. And if you really want to see how it impacts your sleep, and you have something that tracks sleep, like, like I wear the Aura Ring or any other sleep tracker, and you can track deep sleep and REM sleep, do that. See what it does. Like, literally, if you fall asleep all right in both scenarios where you fall asleep, um, you fall asleep with food or without food, see how that actually impacts your sleep quality. But do it a couple times, get an average and see what it does. For me personally, I know I'm good about 60 minutes before I go to sleep. It's probably about when my meal finishes, I would say. Maybe 45 minutes. I do fine with that. I have other people that I suggest that they finish eating sooner. They do better with that. But try it. That's what I would say. But I mean, because if you have actual data, and you can see that it's not impacting your sleep, or it's helping your sleep, or whatever, or neutral, then, there you go. There's your answer. Also, a subject related from Stan Efferding. If you wake up after 5 or less hours of sleeping to fit in your training or cardio, you're stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. I'm not sure if he's asking me a question about it, but yeah, I mean, I would agree. I made a post about this the other day about setting up. I don't remember what the actual post was called. Oh, it was optimal, something like optimal versus practical. Yeah, this is a textbook example of that. Yeah, I get up at, I don't know, I don't sleep, I get, so I can get up and train 4 a.m. or whatever. And same, like, people that do fasted cardio and stuff. Hey, it has its place. There's a time and a place for it, but yeah, it's silly. It's like, I cannot see how chronic sleep deprivation would ever be worth getting up to train earlier. It's not. Now, there are situations where people's schedules are really packed. They're going to have to reprioritize. I've moved people's schedules. Help. I don't say help. I mean, talk to them about moving their schedules around in different ways to help them maximize not only sleep but still be able to train, and also like meet in the middle somewhere. In terms of setting up the actual volume of the training and how long a training session takes, to still being productive but also not being in the gym for 2.5 hours. So find a happy medium that allows more sleep. I'm almost always going to lean towards more sleep if someone's struggling to get sleep in, whether it's cardio or whatever, training or whatever. But cardio wise, get cardio equipment out of your house. It's a must. It's not expensive anymore, and there's so many options out there. There's so much used stuff floating around, because people buy cardio equipment, use it like 3 times, and then they sell it for 10 or 20% of what they paid for it new. So I mean, there's tons of options in terms of cardio equipment. Get it at your house for sure. It's a must. But yeah, I mean, in general, I definitely agree with the statement for sure. All right, last one. Can using melatonin every day to help sleep increase estrogen levels? I think that might be a typo. I work 3rd shift, and during the day trying to sleep is really tough. So I take liquid melatonin nearly every day to get restful sleep. Yeah, you can. I mean, you can use melatonin to help regulate the circadian patterns, and people use it for that, like for jet lag, for example. And it works. I mean, it helps. It's not magic, but it helps. You would want to take it. You'd want to take it before you sleep. It's just going to help replicate a normal sleep environment, because typically, if we're working on like a 24-hour clock, more or less, we're going to produce more well, not just melatonin. We produce certain neurotransmitters, waking response, and certain neurotransmitters to go to sleep. A lot of it is light exposure and dark exposure. When it's dark, we produce more melatonin so we can sleep. And obviously, trying to sleep during the day, yeah, you can darken your room and all that stuff, but your body knows it's daytime. So taking the melatonin can certainly help. It does help replicate that sleep environment a little bit better. I'm not a huge fan of taking melatonin every single day for regulating sleep cycle. There's better ways to do it with light and dark exposure and just better sleep hygiene. But in this case, where you're working thirds, or you rotate and you do thirds some days and then regular some of the other days, melatonin is going to be a really good tool to help reset that sleep 24-hour, or if you want to call it that, sleep cycle each time. So you could definitely use it in those cases before sleep, for sure, 100%. Yeah, definitely. All right, that's it, guys. Thank you for the questions, as always, and talk to you guys next time.